Revolutionary greetings. This statement is of the Bruised Fruit Foundation, Madasi Art Studios and Galleries, and the United States of Africa Revolutionary Party, presented and written by myself, Kalaika Aniyajali Kwa Baruti Shakur, founder of the foundation, gallery, and a cadre member of the party. This statement also consists of contributions from Kasim Giro, who is currently incarcerated in the state of Maryland and who is a chief developer of African political science curriculum. We both feel that it is necessary to address you in regards to the life of Asada Shakur, as we always give thanks for the liberation of our beloved sister and comrade Asada Shakur. Every day is of great importance that we do this. It is not only a time to rejoice in our triumph of obtaining freedom for our dear sister comrade, it is also a time to assess our current state of being as a collective body of people so that we can in turn collectively use and analyze history to deal with any and all circumstances and challenges we may face, especially when we speak of liberation, the need for it, and how to obtain it. It is quite clear to us that freedom is important, and when it is denied, we must assume and seek every strategy and tactic that we can to obtain it. This was understood when Asada was liberated. Every attempt at liberation is not always a victory, but in this case, it was. There was a war just like the one today that was waged against African people in the United States of America. And because of this war, Asada, just like many others, became a prisoner of war. It was because Asada belonged to a party that had principles, a party that had morals, and a party that had loyalty that Asada was freed. But there were, of course, variables and circumstances that made it not so easy of a feat for others who sought liberation and are still held captive. However, Asada's liberation was and is a living reality. And what is important is that we understand how and why such a victory can happen and still exist in our present day when there is still a bounty. The people are still the victors, and her life and the blood that flows through her veins is proof of it. She is our shining star. But we must ask ourselves, what are the factors in place that protects her from this bounty? And to answering that question can only be done by using very critical analysis. Through careful and extreme consideration, we found our answer in Cuba. This year, as at this very moment, we want to turn your attention to Cuba. Cuba has shown itself to the history of the world that it could not count itself amongst the nations content to live under the boot of imperialism. It is to the distinguished men and women representatives of this nation we give our most revolutionary salutations. Revolutionary Cuba has offered a lot to our people in the light of being an example. It was Cuba, under the leadership of the July 26 movement, that sparked the torch of working class revolution and internationalism in the Western Hemisphere. It was Cuba, guided by a proletarian consciousness, that sought to give its citizens a fair and human existence. Cuba stands in our hearts and minds as an example of the words of Karl Marx that the oppressed have nothing to lose but their chains, and with their freed hands, they will reach out to help others with chains on. Some would believe incorrectly that we had become friends of Cuba as they sent thousands of volunteer troops to Angola or as Che led a unit of combatants in Congo. That we had become friends of Cuba as thousands of doctors saved lives throughout West Africa, or as the first responders to the Ebola crisis were of Cuban nationality and battling COVID 19 globally in spite of a blockade placed against them. That we had become friends with Cuba when our most selfless fighters of the Black Panther Party, Black Liberation Army, Robert F. Williams, Assata Shakur, and others were granted asylum by Conrad Fidel and Raul Castro. These believers are sadly mistaken. Our friendship with Cuba began as the first African feet touched the island as slaves in 1517. Our friendship with Cuba began at the hanging of one of our African warriors against slavery, Jose Amonio Adante, in 1812. Our friendship with Cuba began in 1895 with the emergence of Jose Marti. It began with the major Black uprising in 1912. It began with Mancado. It began with New Year's 1959. It began with the Bay of Pigs. The fact that our beloved sister Conrad Asada Shakur remained in the warm embrace of Cuba's socialist hands has meant so much to our people, and we have not forgotten this. We have not forgotten, nor will we ever forget, that our overwhelming gratitude belongs to the Cuban people who welcomed this beautiful woman into their bosom. Were it not for Cuba, the cold clutches of imperialism would surely have snatched the fire she inspired in our struggle for freedom. For this act, words cannot describe our appreciation. However, as we can see, Cuba's connection to our people and our struggle continues, and we have not as yet been able to draw from Cuba the most critical of lessons, those of working class solidarity, those of internationalism, those of standing on the shoulders of our historical leaders and movements to propel ourselves forward towards our goals of liberation. There are many things that we can learn from our comrades in Cuba. As a result of our enslavement in the Western Hemisphere, we have become a part of a struggle that we did not create, but it is one we occupy with other oppressed people, and this is the reason for our affinity with Cuba. The struggle of African people in America and in Africa has gone through many stages, and the Cuban people have been present and made sacrifices throughout. Our desire to continue this relationship remains strong. There is this slogan that says, Black Lives Matter, and it has spread far and wide. It is the result of continued oppression by the state. The oppression ranging from police brutality, economic and political inequality, deliberate educational and medical neglect, mass incarceration, political imprisonment. It is the storybook of our presence here in America. Through this, Cuba has been present with the rest of the world. These conditions are known to many of the horrific struggles that African people are facing. After hundreds and hundreds of years of struggle against Yankee imperialism, we have long ago realized that the struggle waged against the chief imperial power of the world is one that we cannot win alone. The creation of fostering alliances and friendships is of the utmost importance. So, again, on this day, in celebration of Asada. We would like to thank our brothers and sisters in Cuba for what they have done, and we encourage you all to work harder and more diligently to build stronger relationships with people the world over that share our interests and the desire to wage struggle against imperialism. Let us discipline ourselves and give everything we got to free all political prisoners and prisoners of war. We in the United States of Africa Revolutionary Party salute those of you who work tirelessly and consistently in the efforts of organizing and liberating yourselves and your people. Those of you who will not rest until things change and a better turn for the interests of our people and of humanity. Those of you who will not rest comfortably until imperialism is done away with, we salute you and encourage you to do more. You must also remember that Kwame Ture said, power only comes from the organized masses. So keep up the good work. Organize, organize, organize. Let's create some power, for it is the only way we can win. Long live Asada Shakur. All power to the people.